Hi, this is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to show you how to add beads to a 12 warp Kumihimo. Now if you've watched my previous video, I showed you these two examples here of how to do a 12 warp Kumihimo, and the difference between a 12 and an 8 is you're seeing that you're having that sort of focal spiral that goes around there, and in this case it is that beautiful gold color. So I did this example, and I also showed you this example as well. It's the same. This uses satin rat tail. So for today's demonstration, I'm going to show you how to add beads. Now I have two examples here. One of them is these are both 12 warp. This one has one focal color of that beautiful gold, and then I used a bead mix on the center there. So it didn't matter where I placed my beads. So this is what a nice 12 warp with 11O seed beads looks like. And here is what the 12 warp with 8O seed beads looks like. And again, you can see that I chose that beautiful gold color, but focused more on a single color there in the center. All right, so those are two examples here. So I'm going to be showing you a third example. And honestly, it's not that different from adding beads from an 8 warp as it is to a 12 warp. So what I've done so far is I've taken my cords here and I've built up my thread so far. So you can see in there it has that nice beautiful spiral happening already. So I'm going to continue that a little bit here. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to start, and let me just show you where my beads are starting. So I'm going to kind of kick out my bobbins here. So as you learned from previous, I have this main row going across here, and this is going to be that main spiral. So this is my gold bead here on both sides. And then what's going to happen is by putting my blue beads here and my blue beads here and my white beads here and my white beads here, so they're kind of separated, I'm going to get a nice sort of additional spiral happening. So you're going to see that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to continue and just do a couple of wraps here. Just going around, just building up that braid just a little bit more. Also, so you can kind of just get used to the pattern here. And again, I do encourage you to watch the other video. It goes through much slower to walk you through Kumihimo. You can also learn this by watching our 8 warp. All right, so just a couple more here. I'm going to go around one more time, and then I'll kind of walk you through it a little bit slower when adding the beads. All right, so that is my last one there, so I'm going to rotate one more time. All right, so as you've been watching, I've been taking this cord here and picking it up. Now I've grabbed one little bead and I'm going to slide it down, and what it's going to do is it's going to catch underneath that cord in the center there. So you can just see it just hiding underneath there. And I know these are small beads, but again, this is a little bit more of an advanced technique. So just make sure that your bead is being caught underneath the cord there, that it's not coming on top. We don't want it to look like that. We want it to kind of catch underneath. So you can see that I'm actually kind of poking my fingers up through there just to sort of hold it into place, because Kumihimo is a little bit difficult in terms of the tension. And you can just see that I'm just doing the same pattern, just kind of sliding it down there. There we go. And I know the blue beads are hard to see on the blue cord there, but we want to make sure that they are staying put under there. So you just gotta kind of hold it and just be careful, especially with this first one while you're just starting to build up those beads. But again, this is why it's really important to have a good handle on the 12 warp before you try adding beads. And if you are adding the 8Os, they tend to be a little bit easier to add. There's, you know, a little bit more of a lip for them to kind of catch on to. All right, so you can now see that they're all kind of just like sitting down in there. So we're going to keep going, and every time you pick up a cord to move it, you're going to pick up one bead and then move the cord across. And you want to keep good tension here. You can also let it slack just a little bit if you're noticing that the tension is too much to let the beads sit underneath. But don't let it go too much, and you can just kind of just go slow and just kind of poke it down in there. And I would recommend having a pair of maybe bent nose tweezers nearby, just that way if you need to pull one of those beads out, you can do so. Sometimes they just need a little bit of help. All right, so this is the whole technique, guys. You just kind of add a bead as you go. And again, if you're gonna stop and pause at one point, remember our rule of 3 up and 1 down, so you know exactly where to start from when you get back. So I'm gonna continue to bead a little bit because I want you to see the result that this pattern allows you. And just in case you're curious, when it comes to the 11O beads, we found that, you know, depending on tension, of course, but about 50 beads per strand will give you about a 6 to a 6.5 inch bracelet. So if you're curious about sizing, but the great thing about Kumihimo is it's not like bead crochet where you kind of have to know the number of beads like right from the beginning. This one will allow you to add additional beads as needed. All right, so I'm going to continue to do this and I'll be right back to show you what our result is looking like. All right, so I'm going to leave 3 up there on one of my sides, and I want to show you the result that we're sort of getting down here at the bottom. We're getting that nice sort of double spiral. Let me get some of my things out of the way so you can actually see. So one thing that I noticed is that I do have a locked bead in there, so I'm going to show you guys how to get that out. So you can see that there's a little gap here, and these are my bent nose tweezers here. So I have a little gap of a white bead. And I can see him, he got locked up in there at the top. Now this is something that's easier to catch as you go. So every, you know, couple of rounds, just come and just check it out in the back, just make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be. Because if there's not, you know, if there's less tension here at the moment, you can actually get that out a little bit easier. So I'm going to go ahead and push that through to loosen up some of the tension there on the top. And then I'm just going to take my little bent nose tweezers there and just kind of finagle it in there, and we're just going to sort of dig out our little bead there. Now be careful, these are glass beads, so you don't want to crack the bead, but all you're trying to do is just move the cord out of the way. Now ideally you don't want this to happen, but if it does, this is kind of how you can salvage your piece. But I definitely recommend you do it a little bit as you go. All right, come on there, buddy. There we go. All right, and now I'm just sort of twisting the beads to get them to sit correctly. So there you go. All right, now you can see that I poked a couple of beads out, so what I want to do is I want to flip it back over, and we're just going to kind of adjust our tension again. You can see that I have some slack on some of my cords there. And keep that one down there. There we go. Just kind of pull it down. All right, so now we are ready to continue. And remember, if you are gonna do that, anytime you kind of flip it over and check, make sure that you have 3 up on one side because you don't wanna flip it back over and totally forget where you started from. So you just need a little pair of tweezers and just sort of do it as you go. You know, it happens. Don't think that your skills aren't up to snuff sometimes just when they're rotating there. And I do like to kind of keep one of my fingers down there and just kind of keep just poking it down, just making sure everybody's happy down there. All right, so we're going to continue here. And again, just making sure it slides right underneath there. And I'm going to take one more bead and slide that down. So let's say those are all the beads that I wanted to add. Now, I have no more beads left on my bobbin, so I'm just going to continue and rotate and do it the same, just without the beads, and this is going to sort of zip up the other side. So we just keep going around and around. And I'm sure you know the pattern by now because I'm moving a little faster. If you need to sort of review the pattern of doing a 12 warp, please go back and watch our video without beads. The cords are all different colors and it's a little bit easier to follow. This is, like I said, a little bit more of an advanced technique, but once you get the hang of it, it is really, really fun. And I'm just going to do a couple more here because I want you guys to be able to kind of see it off of the, I'm going to cut it off of the disc for you so that you can see what that looks like. So I'm going to continue to do this and I'll be right back in 2 seconds to show you what that looks like. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of come up through here and just pull this down just a little bit, and then I'm just gonna release all my bobbins from the top here. And I'm just gonna pull this through. Take off my little gator weight there. And here's where you can see what we've got. So you can see the unbeaded portion here. It still has that really nice little tight spiral, but this beaded portion has sort of a triple spiral now. So you can just see the little difference here, where if you use 3 different colors and in that pattern you can achieve this type of result. There are definitely other patterns that you can do. I encourage you to play around and test it out. Also, you can tell that by using one color, I chose the blue and I had blue beads, so that kind of disappears into it. So what you really focus on is you focus on that gold and that white spiral. So just something to consider when you are deciding on your patterns, but have fun. It's very similar to 8-warp Kumihimo, just a little bit more advanced. So please enjoy and head over to Beadaholique.com to catch all of our other videos on how to do all of our wonderful Kumihimo projects. You can get all of these supplies by heading over to Beadaholique.com.